much. It's genuinely such an honor to be here and share and to hear what others are sharing as well. I'm excited to hear about everyone's work and believe our international solidarity efforts are critical in advancing social justice. Through radically imagining and building an environment-centered world together, of which both humans and communities are part, we advance social justice, and co-ops are one major way to build this world. There are roughly 60,000 co-ops in the US, and my background in particular is worker co-ops, which there are roughly 1,000 or so in the US. I work at Shared Capital, which is a cooperative loan fund that is a co-op itself and only lends to co-ops nationally. We've been around for 45 years and we're started in the Twin Cities. Um, I'm also on the board of the Association of Cooperative Educators, CoFed, which works with around land justice issues, and the Milwaukee Tool Library. I have a background, my background is mainly in co-ops through lending, education, research, and being a worker owner at Equal Exchange, and at the Ajani Group, a small BIPOC worker cooperative that mostly does co-op education and engagement. I also have an urban planning and environmental studies background and have done research. Um, and I'm a proud Chicana. My father was white and a community organizer. He used worker co-ops as a tool for racial and economic justice. And on my mom's side, we're Mexican American. And she was also a community organizer and is a doctor as well. I say this to share that this is my lens. Each of our stories are important. Your story matters. And I'm really excited to connect around the topic of social justice today. Thank you.
From your work in cooperative development and finance, how do cooperatives uniquely address poverty and inequality while advancing democratic ownership and shared prosperity?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, and I want to say that, oftentimes finances can feel kind of like a little bit dehumanized, but I'll share that this topic matters to me personally as well as professionally. As I grew up in the lowest income neighborhood in my city, um, which dealt with some environmental issues, around air pollution, and industry nearby. Um, my family's experienced issues around redlining in the United States, um, and then also I've been a worker owner myself at Equal Exchange, as I mentioned earlier. So I say that to share that I try to bring these lenses of care to my work, even with lending. And I think Shared Capital, Shared Capital Cooperative demonstrates the power of cooperatives really well and how we can care for one another through sharing resources. It shows the power of a revolving loan fund as opposed to traditional banking, which often shuts people out to accessing dollars, um, through looking at credit scores, which we don't look at, or through requiring personal guarantees, which we don't do. Um, the cooperative loan fund also has power in that it is a loan fund, as opposed to grants, which are useful once and then the funds have been used and are gone. So in 2025, Shared Capital dispersed 6.2 million to co-ops of many types and sectors, and 88% of these dollars went to co-ops that are majority owned by women, people of color, and or low income owned. And in 2025, we helped maintain or create 500 jobs. And we also supported lending to 100 affordable housing units. During the affordability crisis in this country, in the US, this allows for people to obtain home ownership collectively. Since Shared Capital began 45 years ago, we've lent, I have time up. I'm sorry. But yeah, um, since it began, we've lent out 87 million, um, and focus on areas of climate justice as well. I can share more later. I know my
Yeah.
time's up.
You have researched Latinx and rural cooperatives. Now, what lessons do these models offer for building resilient, local rooted economies, especially in communities often overlooked by mainstream policy and finance?
Sure, thank you. So I want to frame the conversation by just saying that the communal and human-centered nature of cooperatives have been part of Latin and other BIPOC communities predating legal norms or Western colonization. Um, our communities have been operating in more equitable and sustainable ways. Um, we often feel pressure to retrofit our cultures this way and assimilate to capitalism to survive and to reframe within the professionalized lens, but that is by design, and that's a double-edged sword. Um, I think one major takeaway through my research and just lived experience is that um, co-ops have a real opportunity to around connection. Um, Connecting people during times of need. So that might be climate disasters. FEMA is, which often will be the support network, the federal support for people during climate disasters. It's actually housed in the Department of Homeland Security, and it's not necessarily safe for people to go there. So if you're not a citizen, I think it's really critical, and people are being disappeared right now into detention centers to line the pockets of corporations. So human-centered efforts, which a lot of the Latinx co-ops are doing, um, that are rooted in mutual aid and outside of the state, not necessarily within the state. Like sometimes they're in, like for example, figuring out, like different statutes and different models, legal models to form our co-ops is one way to address it, but mutual aid and co-op values in that can really be an important lesson for communities. Oh, yeah,
No, keep
sorry.
going if you have, you can go on.
Oh,
When
sure,
this
sure.
is time,
Yeah.
you can finish up.
Oh, thank you. And then, yeah, and then with rural cooperatives, we've, there's some opportunities to assess the ecosystem around us. I can share a mapping exercise if you're interested in the chat for your own
Mhm.
community. And then what's going on in the Twin Cities right now with ICE. What we're seeing is incredible community resiliency coming out of the communities there that are keeping people safe and alive. And there's a huge concentration of co-ops there, and that's not a coincidence.
As someone raised by community organizers, how do you see cooperative ownership and collective governance reshaping our approach to work, climate action, and long-term economic justice?
Thank you so much for that question. It means a lot. Yeah, my parents taught me to live out my values of love for each other. And, I'm 42 now, and I honestly I can't find another way that quite makes life worth living. I honestly believe that our power is in our togetherness. The cooperative slogan is stronger together, and that rings true, especially in these times. For me, my co-op work is living out my values in a community together. And where I live right now, Milwaukee is a great place to do so through relationship building over time. I see people just caring about each other. And I know that sounds simple, but that's really powerful. And what we're seeing in the Twin Cities and throughout this country right now in the US, um, we're seeing that that's our superpower, that's our strength. Um, the solidarity economy and co-ops are tools not just to tear down the old that is harming us, which is like the military industrial complex and corporations and excessive greed in this country, but rather to build up the beautiful world that we want to see. We get to build something beautiful together. Um, I'll just share too that I was raised to expect to be surveilled all the time, frankly. And maybe in the past that was perceived as being overly cautious, but now there's a lens, a stark lens showing that that's not so far-fetched. We are actually, there is a lot of surveillance state right now. Um, and I think that, the greed and political corruption has really had a light shown on it lately in this country, in the US in particular. Um, and people are seen as, can be, through capitalism, people are often seen as nothing more than money makers through their body's labor and seen as disposable. And so comparing that to a cooperative human-centric system is an extreme contrast and something that I find very beautiful to create something more cooperative together, more rooted in our humanity.